You're listening to the LFG podcast. I'm Keenan Fry, the co-host. Amir is not here. He's chewing on his toenails, studying for a coding exam. And I wish Amir some luck while he's chewing on those toenails. Instead, though, I am joined in the studio by none other than Tony Thomas.
Hey, nice to be here.
Now, Tony, you have a lot going on right now, and we're going to jump through a bunch of hoops and cover a lot of ground.
All right.
But for starters, you're doing a big-ass fucking tour, and it's with Fallujah.
Yes, that's with Fallujah, Persephone, and I'm going to screw up their name. I think it's Volvodynia.
Volvodynia.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a new one I've never heard of.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool because for starters, Fallujah's an SF band.
Yeah.
There's a couple of names that come to mind when I think of like recent SF bands. Death Heaven's another one.
Yeah.
You guys aren't really an SF band. You're a San Jose band.
That's just where I'm from. I would say as a band, we were kind of based all around the Bay Area. Initially, we started practicing in Oakland Music Complex. So we officially were Oakland band, but our current studio is located in San Jose. But everybody lives around, North, South Bay, East Bay.
And you got a weird situation going on because you're living in Seattle.
Yeah, 2 years ago, moved up to Seattle, mainly due to just the cost of living here in the Bay Area. And there's an industry up there for the type of work that I do, and just cheaper cost of living.
You do biotech.
Yeah, I do biotech.
See, that's pretty fucking phenomenal. You do the art and the music, and you do all the creative stuff. You also help run the band, and then you also do the biotech. So you kind of are approaching it from all sides, all angles. And then, on top of all of this, you guys are actually really taking the next steps to up your game, do real tours, and really like put yourselves out there. You guys have accomplished a lot, and I got a lot of respect for that. I think one of the things that people are going to be interested in hearing about is how you balance all of that and how you got yourself there.
Okay.
But, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So what I want to start with is tell me about how you just got into guitar and music and all that and your influences. How'd that all start for you, man?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up, music was a big part of my upbringing. Both my parents were huge music fans. They had a pretty good variety on what they would listen to, the classical music, classic rock, and then even more modern stuff at the time, like Metallica even. I didn't actually start playing guitar till I was about 20 years old. And it was just more couple years after I had discovered more extreme metal music, so that kind of acted as a catalyst for inspiration to wanting to learn an instrument. Just hearing that type of music made me want to be more than just a fan of something. It was like I want to do that.
What was the band that did that for you, that made you really want to make that jump?
Probably Death with the album Individual Thought Patterns was like that. Or
fucking Evil Chuck, dude.
Or
all right.
Like, what was I into around that time? So this was 2004.
Oh, fuck. All right. Evil Chuck, man.
Yeah. So like that, Atheist, and then I was really I'm really into black metal, but like Mayhem, stuff like that.
Yeah. All the Norwegian shit. All right.
I was way into that around
Fuck
that time.
yeah, man. Fuck yeah. For me, it was a little bit different with Soundgarden.
Okay.
I got really into that, but everyone has their own pathway to it. And so it's really cool that like what you did is you identified this calling and then you went for it. I think a lot of people hesitate. They have a calling, but they're not sure if they can actually do it. And they're afraid of all the things that go along with it. And, when you started, you probably didn't envision it going this far.
No, definitely not. It going this far is more of a recent development too. So I'd been doing it for years and, kind of accepted that like, hey, this is just going to be a hobby that I do. And, it's not going to go farther than this.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like a passion project. Yeah. Like we were talking about that, like the way you sort of justify it to yourself. I mean, not that you have to justify it in the sense of like, to other people, but to yourself, it sounds like for you, it's really like, this is something that I'm doing for me. And if I like it and if I'm proud of it, I'll put it out there. If it's not the best, that's okay. I'm going to work through it. And if other people like it, that's kind of the bonus.
Right.
I think that that's the essential thing, because a lot of people, they think like, oh, I have to get a business together. I have to have all these knickknacks and odds and ends tied in, have all these people supporting me to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of people who sabotage themselves. That was one of the things I struggled with. So, you know, the fact that you kind of just naturally progress through it is actually like really fucking admirable, dude. So how do you go from just being some guy who's just like, I love this music, I want to pursue the instrument, to then getting to this point?
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, picked up the guitar around 20 years old. I immediately went to trying to start a band. So I had a friend from high school that played drums, and then we just kind of started, you know, crappy garage band, learning the instruments while we did this.
What was it called?
I think.
Yeah. This is good. See, what was it called?
I think we had Savage Mutilation, and you know, this never did anything.
No,
yeah.
But that's how it has to start. It's always something cornball like that.
Yeah, but I think jumping right into trying to do a band was really beneficial, because one, it taught me how to jam and improvise. Because just playing live with the drummer, you know, he'd play some drum beats, and I just try to play guitar and keep up with it. And, you know, over time, you know, I developed that over years of doing that. And it, you know, really developed my improvisational skills and my ability to jam. And that has become my primary path when I compose music, is to really just jam out, but I hit record while I'm doing it. And keep the ideas I like. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's so much more organic. I could go on about that, but I want to keep this the way it's going. So you kind of have this sort of this vault of recordings. Now, when you're doing this jamming process, about how much of it do you think is never going to see the light of day?
Probably about 90%.
So talk about that. How do you figure out what it is you're going to pick?
If I like it, it's really, you know, I use myself as a filter. It's like, hey, I like this. I want to listen to this myself. That's really the filter. Yeah.
What happens if you think like this is a good idea, and then you show it to someone who's in your band or your project, and they kind of shit on it? What do you do then?
I say, trust me.
Okay.
Just trust me on this. It'll work out.
I respect that.
Yeah.
There's a famous story about Mark Morton, who came up with the song Descending. He came up with the initial riff, the Lamb of God riff from Sacrament back in like 2006. And they all shat on it.
Yeah.
But it was one of the best songs besides Redneck, which is the other one he wrote for that record. So yeah, man, respect. You really got it on level there. All right. So you kind of have like a process of putting together your ideas, coming up with things, and you went through a natural process of just jamming with people,
right,
and just trying to meet people and make it work. So what were some of the obstacles that you were kind of like running into?
You know, earlier on, money. And then, you know, being in your early 20s and being in a band, you're around a lot of people that like to party a lot.
Fucking nihilistic.
Yeah. And that can really get in a way of, I guess, the business side of being in a band, where like, hey, let's be focused. We have these songs. Let's record them, put, you know, some effort into making them sound good with the recording, and put out an album instead of, you know, focusing on partying and playing shows, which, you know, is a lot of fun.
Well, you kind of have to do the shows to get experience.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of experience playing live. Like my first real band, it's called Absent Society.
Absent Society.
Yeah, so they were active, I think, around 2003, and I was there 2006, like the beginning of 2006, and then I kind of left at the end of 2011 because I started going to college at that time, and that became kind of my focus, and just didn't have time to do a band as active as they were. But
so you went to college later on?
Yeah, I started college at 25.
You know, man, that's really interesting, because like so a little bit of contrast.
Yeah.
For me, when I was doing art, I was always told like it's a dead end, and if you do that, you're gonna be a fuck up.
Yeah.
My uncle, who was kind of like a second dad to me. So my dad, okay, back up a bit. My dad worked in the same field as you, and that's kind of where our connection comes from. I wanted to save that for later on. We'll go into that later on. My dad was always working as a kid. My uncle was the one who like brought me into like all of this weird stuff about the city. Like, you know, he used to tell me about Little Roger and the Goosebumps, which did Stairway to Gilligan's Island, because the song Gilligan's Island from the show is in the same key as Stairway to Heaven, and like just weird, goofy stories about Berserkly Records. And then I was talking to Paul the other day about the Tubes, and I grew up like with my Uncle Mike telling me about that stuff. My first CD from him was the Allman Brothers, Eat a Peach. And so like my route, because we both share death metal in common, mine was very different. I started listening to all the psychedelic stuff, and then I got into it. I got into music at 16, a little bit younger than you, but I was always told like, you're going to be a fuck up and a nothing if you do this. And that's why I wanted to emphasize in the beginning how organic your process was, because prior to this, when we were hanging out, you really had like a natural flow to it. Like you were just going with the stream of things. For me, when I was 18, it's like, you're going to go to college and you're going to be an engineer. Everyone in my dad's side of the family is an engineer. And so like your process is so organic, and I admire that.
Thank you.
Because I think that in that sense, when you go through that, you have more faith in what it is you're doing. And like, I went through college right away, and I wish I had waited and done like the creative stuff first. And so it's very interesting because like we've gone about it different ways, but it's interesting how like the paths kind of converge. I don't know. Which
right.
A little cosmic there.
Yeah. I mean, give a little more context on that. I was the first person in my family to even try to go to college. Yeah, I was pretty terrible student in high school. You know, there was never an expectation for me to go to college. It was more of like, you know, my parents saying, we didn't do this. This would be a good thing that you should do, especially in the world today. And, you know, I wasn't a good student in high school, so I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. And yeah, you know, and then I, you know, did the music and worked crappy jobs, and then it just kind of became like, I'm tired of working these crappy jobs.
I need to move up.
And let me try something else. And then, you know, I'm going to try to go to school, but I'm going to do it, one, with the discipline I learned from playing music, of practicing an instrument to get better at it. And I just kind of applied that same mindset to going to school, where it wasn't really like, I'm here to compete or I'm here to, you know, do really well. It's just, I'm going to just do everything, because I know with the instrument, if I just put the effort, I see a result. And that's all I did, and it worked out really well.
Yeah. I 100% respect that. Yeah. I mean, my comparison for music is it's a lot like weightlifting.
Yeah.
I was playing guitar at San Jose State. I had a guitar teacher named Chris Lee, who's
I know him.
Yeah. He was the same teacher for Casey and Colin.
I think he's like
everyone's teacher.
The best secret guitar player in the entire Bay Area, honestly.
Okay.
Not that he's really a secret, but like underrated.
He's the best kept secret. No,
yeah.
He is. I used to go into his studio over at the practice place, going all the way down 4th Street, going to the 101, getting towards the airport. And I used to sit in there and practice with him, and he would throw tennis balls at me. It's like, you're fucking standing still, goddammit, move! And he would throw shit at me and scream at me, and it was like, kind of like, oh, fuck!
Yeah.
But he was doing it to just try and get you, like, out of your shell.
Yeah.
He would do all kinds of goofy fucking shit. Man, I want to, side note, I want to bring Chris on the show. Chris, come to San Francisco, Chris. Come here! Ah! Anyway, you know, it's funny because when I worked with Chris, he put that mindset about weightlifting into my mind, like it's a muscle and you're working it out. Mm-hmm. And the same way you talk about the repetition and the discipline, he's a guy who has it. That's why he's manifested those skills and why so many people respect him.
Right.
and so many people have come from his studio, and like he is the guy in San Jose. Like you go to the Guitar Center there and you're like, hey, do you have a teacher that you'd recommend? They all recommend Chris.
Yeah.
I
mean, like, I feel that he could easily walk into a band like Animals as leaders and be totally fine.
Which is fucking mental, dude. Like, what? I know that we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah, we can focus up.
But it's just the discipline thing.
Yeah.
I fucking respect that. We're gonna take our first break. We're gonna come back in a few minutes. We got a song that we're gonna play for you guys that is by Dawn of Ouroboros. We are gonna play Velvet Incandescence, and we'll be back in just a moment.
You're listening to
LFG Podcast.
And that song we just listened to was Velvet Moon, not Velvet Incandescence. Velvet Incandescence is the record by Dawn of Ouroboros. And we are here with the Tony Thomas.
Yes, we are.
All right, Tony.
Sure.
So that was a lot of fun. Like we have a lot of common background from the San Jose scene, and that's really fucking cool. I want you to kind of tell us some more about the things that led up to Dawn and you starting this project. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I took a few years off of playing in bands when, the last few years of college kind of like really picked up. I was working in a research laboratory. And then I did make an attempt at a PhD at UC San Diego. And so I was like really academic focused at the time and, wasn't playing in bands. And that was around 2013, 2014. And went to the PhD, absolutely hated it. Decided, I don't want to do this. Left it, tried to get into biotech, started working biotech around the end of 2015. Tried starting up bands again. And, I was still down in San Diego. And then, as it is with the biotech industry, there's layoffs all the time. So I was laid off. And then I was kind of like, screw being down here. I'm going back to the Bay Area. And, it had been a while since I played in any bands. So looked for a band on Craigslist. Found something, joined a band. And then
Craigslist.
Yeah,
That's a little sketchy, dude.
I mean, like, that's kind of the way, like, when you like have been out of the scene for a while or just getting started, that's where you find bands to join. But
or murderers.
that as well, but that's not something I ever encountered. Yeah, so played in this band. Music was all right. It's kind of a mess on the way that it was run. Then I met Chelsea, the vocalist, and Dawn of Ouroboros in this band. That band kind of fell apart. And then, I'm just going to write my own songs. So Dawn was just like, I don't want to call it a solo project, but it was just something that was just kind of my idea. And I was like, I'm just going to write music, not think about it. It's just kind of going to be an amalgamation of all my influences, and I'm not going to have a goal on what I want it to sound like. I'm not going to have a goal on, what subgenre of metal that I want to fit into. It's just going to have characteristics of stuff I listen to. And, just kind of free form in the writing based on just jamming, mainly to just like a metronome or like generic drum loops. And then, developed some songs, brought in some other people that I met from playing in a few other bands, like, Chelsea on vocalist from the previous band. I met David, who's in Deliria, who you'll be talking to. He played bass in a lot of the bands, so I'm like, do you want to play bass? And then for the drummer, I would say around the same time I was writing for Dawn, I was jamming with this other band called Sentient Ignition, which is kind of a technical metal band, and Ron was the drummer of that band. Okay. And I just said, do you want to play drums on this project? And we recorded, released our first song with music video in 2019. It was really well received. Recorded that album over that year. And then I just started cold contacting record labels. Just, why the hell not?
Call them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just here's my demo.
You'll never know if you don't ask. Yeah. I respect that, man.
And this German record label said, yeah, I like this. I'll put it out.
What label was it?
Natravox Productions.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Natravox.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a small indie label. But they'll put out he'll pay CDs and vinyl, and
gotta get started.
Promo could have been better, but it was nice to have somebody else pay for that kind of thing. And yeah, and then our album came out in March of 2020. So we didn't really get to play live for about a year and a half.
That was The Art of Morphology.
That was The Art of Morphology, yes.
So that was your first release. So was that like the first album that you've ever actually released, like beginning to end?
Yeah, and it was the first album where I was the writer for the music.
That must have been really exciting. Like first off, just like getting around that corner and being like, wow, it's like in my hands. Like here it is on vinyl, or here it is on CD, or even if it's like an MP3, just like having the finished product.
Right.
What was that feeling like when you finally, like, did it feel like a homecoming? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, I was 36 at this time when this album came out, and I had been playing guitar, since I was 20.
Yeah.
In like, various bands that whole time. And I had kind of decided, like, I had the thought, like, this is kind of be how it's going to be, doing this for fun. And then, I got that, and it's like, well, I never expected this to really happen. Yeah. So it was a really good feeling. And then I guess I'm pretty good at the business side of doing a band. Really, I just feel it's knowing how to write a proper email.
I think it's a combination of knowing how to write a proper email, showing up, and just like
following through.
Yeah. It's really basic stuff like that. But so continue on. So now we're going from the
Art of Morphology.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That to Velvet Incandescence.
Yeah. So like I said, our album came out in 2020. Kind of just was online stuff. The album sold pretty decently for being an indie release. And then in September 2021, there's this band Vintersea from Oregon, and they wanted to do a tour for an album they had put out recently, and they asked us to come along.
You said Vintersea.
Vintersea, yeah.
Never heard of them. Okay. And they're pretty cool?
Yeah, they're really cool people.
What kind of music?
I would say they're similar to what we do.
All right. No, that's cool, because once people see this and they see what you're doing, like, fucking name drop as many people as you can, man.
Yeah, I mean, and they do have a completely different way of doing things, and their sound is very different. But they do a variety in their songwriting. A lot of albums you'll come into, and it's this album has this mood. I know this, and I'm going to expect this mood or this feeling basically the whole way through the album.
Right.
And that isn't really our approach. And that's kind of an approach they take as well, where, there's going to be varied moods, varied tempos. Like, hey, this is going to be a softer song, or this is going to be, like a really fast song with lots of blast beats or something. So there's variation. But yeah, we did our tour with them in September. And then I guess the manager of Prosthetic Records had bought our first album, and then he had saw we're on tour, sent us an email, and I talked to him on the phone while we're on tour, and he said, hey, we're interested in working with you guys if you are.
Yeah, buddy!
Yeah, so then...
And just so people know, Prosthetics is a subsidiary of Epic. It is.
It is. Not that...
It is. In fact, so Lamb of God was on Prosthetic.
Yeah.
So I know I'm interrupting you, but like, that's some fucking major league shit, dude. Like,
but I would have to double check on the Epic thing. That's news to me.
They were tied in with Epic for a while back in the early 2000s, I thought.
I'm not sure if it still is. It's not something I've heard of with talking to the manager, and then we've met the owner.
Okay, maybe I'm mistaken, but I was pretty sure they were tied in. It doesn't matter.
It could well be, but yeah, it doesn't matter.
But still, Prosthetic it's recognized. Yeah. It's like that's the validation thing. Like you were saying in the beginning, you're not really looking to necessarily make it into a career, but you appreciate the validation, and like, that's a big call, man.
Yeah, something putting my time and effort into. Representative of my creativity and the rest of my band's creativity, and just the fact that there's people that are enjoying this, and there's people that want to invest their own resources in supporting what we do. That really means a lot.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how Velvet Incandescence came together, because that came out in 2023, and you actually have some other projects that are coming out soon.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Velvet, and then let's talk about the new stuff and kind of compare them a bit.
Yeah, sure. So before The Art of Morphology was even released, I had already started writing material that would end up on Velvet Incandescence. So a couple of the songs were written at the end of 2019. You know, just doing my same thing, kind of whatever I want. It's going to be metal of some sort, with, I guess, a strong thread of a black metal influence, because I would say that's my favorite subgenre. And so that kind of developed over 2020, and then I think I finished writing it in February of 2021.
So when you write, let me ask you this. One of the things that Casey did when he was doing the first release for Lost to the Void, and then he moved on to doing Embrace and Disgust. And just a quick shout out, Chelsea was on that record. When they did Embrace and Disgust, he came with ideas, and then they tapped a new guitarist to come in, and he had him do some stuff, and then they like sort of bounced around between everyone, kind of threading pieces together. From what it sounds like, you kind of do this thing where you're in a sort of vacuum, doing a lot in isolation, and then like you show up with your part. Do other people like write on their own? Do they write as a group? How does that dynamic work?
At least at this point, it's more I bring full arrangements for the songs, and then, you know,
we got a Bach over here.
Chelsea will add all her vocals, and David would do his bass. So they're completely doing their own individual parts. And then with the drums, you know, I have like, here's some generic crap for the vibe that I'm looking for, and then our drummer would do his own interpretation of that or make changes.
And that's really hard to do, because if everyone's doing their own thing, it kind of has to be based on how well you know each other, because you're all kind of doing it, and then you kind of mash it together.
I would say it's more, hey, I know what your skills in you know, as a musician are, and then I trust that it's gonna be fine.
Intuition.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty fucking organic. That's cool. So you did that, and Velvet Incandescence 2023, and now you got something new.
Yeah. You know, what will be our third album has already been written and recorded, and it's currently in the final stages of, you know, making an album. And I won't really say much more on that.
Okay. Yep. Keeping it as a little secret. All right. Yep. Maybe we can have you come back later on when you're ready to drop some more. Were there any changes in how you went through the writing process?
Yeah. So at least with Dawn, I want each album to, you know, one, still sound like us, but to be different from the previous one. I don't want to go in and do the same thing outside of it having like a basic framework that still sounds like the band. But other than that, I'll take a completely different approach. Like I would say, The Art of Morphology had a lot of variety, and I used a lot of like soft synth intros and outros for the songs. And then with Velvet Incandescence, I wanted, you know, things to be much more emotional in what we're doing, and more textured with the type of synthesizers that we were adding to it. I guess it was a really colorful album, at least in the way that I interpret music in a visual sense. And with the new one, or the one we're currently finalizing, my approach was to...
We're going to call the new album Bob.
The new album Bob. It's like, okay, the stuff I'm writing right now has a lot more aggressive feel to it. And then I haven't really experimented with doing more uncommon time signatures that are used in metal music. So there's a lot of odd time signatures, but the way that I wanted to approach it is not how...
How are you doing the time signatures? Are you doing them over 4 or under 4? The Meshuggah thing is the under 4.
Like I do a lot of 5 and 7 and stuff like that.
So you're going over 4?
Over 4, yeah. Okay. But, you know, I feel like a lot of bands, when they use odd time signatures in metal music, it's more like we're cutting between multiple different time signatures.
And then the thing about that also is that, like, when you do that, a lot of the times they can't really, like, stop on a dime and change.
Yeah.
So they fucking stitch it together and, like, slide shit around in fucking Pro Tools.
But, you know, that's totally fine. But the way I wanted to do it and the way I believe we did accomplish was I'm going to do this song and it's just in 5. And
all the way through.
It's all the way through. And to a listener, unless they're like focusing and counting,
they're not going to notice.
They're not going to notice.
No, because once you do 4 cycles of 5, exactly. So you kind of almost are doing the Meshuggah thing in your own way.
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, but see, like, it's not gent. I feel like as much as I love the influence that Meshuggah has produced, I feel like a lot of people maybe lean too much on that. I think anything, if you lean too much on it, it can be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. It's kind of been the dominant metal-esque genre for like 15 years.
Yeah, in 2008. Yeah, since Obscene dropped.
Yeah.
No, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, those guys really fucking knocked down some walls.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so what's on the horizon for this? Is there like a whole package that you're putting together? Are you doing like more merch? Are you doing like a bigger production release? Like, how is this going about?
I think this time we're doing a bigger production. So yeah, a lot more money invested into, you know, mixing the album and getting, I guess, the sound that has been in my head for like just a really grandiose, dense wall of sound, but still has lots of clarity to it. Yeah.
So what about artwork? Like, are you working with anybody in particular that you're excited about?
Not really an artist that is super well known.
Can't tell us about the album cover yet.
Yeah, I mean, we worked with an artist that has done one of our t-shirt designs, and he plays bass in the Canadian band Unrequited.
Do you know what's?
I can't remember his name offhand, so
we will edit that in post. You will be accredited.
But I mean, he does digital art, and I kind of feel with our sound having a lot of variety and not traditional metal characteristics, it's easier to get artwork that fits what we do using digital art versus like traditional hand painted stuff, like, you know, like some hellscape or something, which is awesome, but it just doesn't work with what we sound like.
Yeah. You don't like the fucking Slayer artwork and the, you know.
I mean, I do.
It's not my. No, I get
it. Just doesn't work with this.
Yeah. All right. No, that was one of the things Chuck Schuldiner used to talk about on the Death record, Human. He was like, yeah, you know, we did the whole thing about demons coming out of the ground and eating nuns. That was whole like leprosy era. Yeah. But when Human came out, he's like, we're going to turn a corner and talk about divorce. And that somehow was more horrifying than the zombie record. As what was it? Scream Bloody Gore.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one with zombie apocalypse on it, or whatever, or zombie ritual. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of like lyrical content, like what are some of the things that you're talking about? And it's maybe a little bit more of Chelsea's thing, and we'll ask her somewhat about that too. But
I can give a brief summary.
Sure.
Again, a lot of variety. She does a lot of improvisation in how she does her vocals, including the lyrics. So it's pretty freeform. I wouldn't say there's a specific topic that she sticks to. You know, it's just more like, hey.
And so you kind of just give her like a pasture to, and it's like, this is your open space.
Yeah, just your open space. Do what you want.
Fuck yeah. So you make the canvas and that's cool. That's cool. All right.
Sometimes I've made comments, but usually I'm not.
All right. Well, we're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to listen to another one of your songs, play another video, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to just wrap up with the third segment.
Sure. go again
God
because
damn.
that was perfect.
You want me to do the same thing again?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Let's fucking go!
And we just listened to Rise from Dissolution, also off of Velvet Incandescence by Dawn of Ouroboros. All right. And that was Chelsea Murphy bringing us back from the break. So, speaking of Chelsea Murphy, she's now joining us at the conversation table. We got Tony and we got Chelsea. And when we left off in the last segment, we were talking about the writing process. Tony told us a little bit about how he sets up the canvas and then he kind of hands it off to Chelsea. So, Chelsea, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your writing process?
Yeah. Hi. I have been working with Tony since 2016. Is that right?
17.
17? Okay. And I think we work really well together. We've created a plethora of albums together. And, how it works, as Tony mentioned, that he does create like the big canvas of like the songs and everything. From there, we need to, get drums in and we need to get bass in and everything. Typically, I like to be the anchor, but I ended up on this last album we just wrote, being the person that kind of did the secondary piece of it. I also added in some more synth work here and there on this upcoming album, and a lot of my vocals are just improvised in studio, which seems to be what I've just grown to do more and more of in recent years. I just really enjoy improv over spending hours and hours just meticulously writing.
So you kind of respond to so it really is a canvas that he provides because you're responding to it in real time. I mean,
Exactly.
That's very organic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you prefer that. That's actually really cool. So it kind of gives it like a dynamic of push and pull because you're like kind of building the pocket watch and you're kind of putting like the fleur-de-lis embossing on the outside of the watch.
Yeah. And this upcoming album in particular, I did probably the biggest piece of like vocal canvassing in terms of I did a ton of harmonies and just layering and different vocal styles. So I'm really excited to put that out. I think it's probably my best work so far.
Yeah, the introduction to Velvet Incandescence, there's like a whole like vocal melody coming in. And it's very soft and lush, very vibrant. And then you go into the screams and it's like, it's very surprising. And like in a good way because like the contrast reminds me a lot of like the stuff that Michael Ackerford would do on Opeth. I mean, that's kind of like he's the one who really made that template, but it's still like that loud, quiet dynamic. And it really breathes life into the work. And so that's something you just kind of organically do that.
Yeah, more or less. Before joining forces with Tony on this band, I hadn't done any clean singing really, at least on record. And so it's been...
So you started screaming first?
I did start screaming first, yeah.
So was that like how you learned?
I don't know. I mean, I always used singing as kind of like my place to feel good and safe and like just happy in general. And so like that was just something I really kept for myself. And then in my like teenage years, being into metal and everything, I was like, I'm gonna try screaming. And then I just tried and was able to do some like mid-range stuff and built outwards from there. And going into my late teens, joined in forces with some bands and then kind of just ended up here somehow. So
no, that's cool.
yeah. And then, but yeah, as far as like clean singing goes, like the really melodic stuff, that's really new for me to do on record for sure. And I feel like each record does get better with, having more experience. So
that's cool. So when you're writing the music parts that she's going to canvas over, do you have like an idea in your head, like, oh, I want like a big vocal push here or?
Not particularly. One thing we started doing with Velvet and Incandescence is I would write vocal choir parts, and with the newer stuff, I wanted those to be an actual voice. So she'll take the vocal choir parts that I wrote and redo them with her voice instead of using the synthesizer.
So the vocal choir parts, are you doing that in like MIDI or like you're programming it in?
Programming it in MIDI.
Wow. Okay.
And then she just replicates it with her voice.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, some of it's built into what you're doing. So there's a lot like really like a lot going into crafting it. It's like a pocket watch. There's all these little levers and gears spinning inside.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of forethought to that because your writing process for your stuff is very organic. And then when you start kind of seeing how the other parts will fit together, that's when you start dialing it in.
Mhm.
And then she takes that and builds organically off of that. And there's a lot of give and take there. I mean, like you can't force something like that. You have to have a good working relationship with people to make that happen.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you stepping in for this segment. We're going to take a brief moment because we're going to start the secret segment. Secret segment is called Fucked Up Flashcards.
Okay.
We're going to come back in just a moment.
LFG!
Hey, and we are back for the final and secret segment. This is Fucked Up Flashcards. All right, now the rules are simple. You have 2 minutes, and you have to answer these questions as fast as you can. And it's going to be kind of like a popcorn sort of fucking Jeopardy round, and this
Great.
is going to be fucked up. This is going to be super duper fucked up.
Oh boy.
All right, so we have the clock, and we are ready to go. Are you guys fucking ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. Start the clock. All right. Aishin or Nurgle?
Nurgle.
Nurgle.
All right.
Wait, no, never mind. My mind was scattered. Aishin.
Aishin? All right. All right. Oprah Winfrey is in a knife fight with Ellen DeGeneres. Who wins?
Oprah. Both
Yeah,
show.
Oprah.
All right. Pizza or burritos?
Burrito.
I can't really have burritos, so I'm gonna go pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza? All right. Swimming or running?
Running.
Swimming.
All right. Rainy days inside or a sunny day on the beach?
I love the beach, but can it not be sunny?
I'm gonna do rainy and outside.
Rainy and outside, so
Yeah.
cold and wet. All right.
Cold and wet.
All right, you can have a choice between the superpower to see and breathe underwater or to fly.
I'm gonna fly, bro.
You fly? All right, what about you?
I'm gonna do flying as well, just for fast travel.
All right. I don't know, I'd go under the water and talk to the fish and hang out in the Titanic. All right, elephants or penguins?
Penguins.
Elephants.
All right, you got to go to the San Francisco Zoo and murder all of the fucking penguins, and you have to shoot all the elephants in Africa and sell the ivory. All right, fantasy fiction or sci-fi fiction?
Sci-fi fiction.
Sci-fi.
All right, you're never allowed to read a sci-fi book again. You do, your thumbs will get cut off.
Oh my god.
All right, trip to Gibraltar in Spain or a trip to Chichen Itza in Mexico?
Spain.
I'm gonna go with Mexico. Sounds more interesting.
All right,
Yeah.
gonna go to the Temple of Human Sacrifice. Yeah, all right, that's fucking metal. All right, name a guilty pleasure record.
I love the Backstreet Boys.
All right, that counts.
I don't know if I really have a full record, but I'll go with Gunship. Or
That's not a
non-
guilty pleasure. They're fucking
non-measurable.
sick. They're
Non-metal.
sick.
All right, mine is Modest Mouse, The Moon in Antarctica.
Mm.
All right, last one. Baked potatoes or a garden salad?
Garden salad. I like to keep it fresh.
Definitely salad.
All right. Well, I'm all about the potatoes, but that's because I'm Irish.
Well,
All right, and that was Fucked Up Flashcards, just a goofy little segment. You guys have made it to the end. Thank you guys, Chelsea, Tony.
Yep.
This was great.
Thank you.
You know, I really like what you guys are doing with the project. It sounds like there's a whole new sort of chapter coming up ahead for you guys with Dawn of Ouroboros. You have an amazing tour coming up with Fallujah. Do you want to just recap some of the spots you're stopping off at? Anything in particular you're excited
I
about?
don't recall the majority of them. It's the most tour stops we've ever done.
Yeah.
But we are gonna have one here in San Francisco. That'll be in the second half of July.
Okay.
I would
I think
have
it's the
to
22nd.
the 22nd,
I'm pretty sure.
something
Alright.
like that. Yeah.
We'll throw up some flyers and promo for it. All
Thanks.
right. And do you guys want to say any shout outs? Anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to name any bands or anything you want people to check out? Just a moment to give you some shout outs.
I got no one specific, but shout outs to everybody that we collaborate with,
Yeah.
that we work on music with, very happy with the kind of music collective that I've developed over the years and having the privilege to work with so many great musicians.
Yeah, I'm really excited to work with Lewis.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's for future.
We'll go more into that later, but yeah, as far as bands, I don't know. Check out Quan.
All right. Well, there you go. Dawn of Ouroboros.
Thank you for having us.
Tony Thomas and Chelsea Murphy. Catch Dawn of Ouroboros on tour with Fallujah, Persephone, Vulvodynia, and Illusionist, July 22nd at Neck of the Woods in San Francisco. Brought to you by Pinup Productions.
Okay, first off, I'm gonna say like you're listening to, and then I'm gonna do the thing. Just again, let's go. You're listening to LFG Podcast.
I don't think that one went through at all because it was so high. Let me take off the noise reduction. Wow. Because when you did it, you bottomed out. Try it again.
Okay.
So it's the noise gate. So even when I take off noise gate and bring you all the way down, she redlines. That's fucking great.
Get him back up.
All right, so I'm gonna do I'm gonna reduce your dBs here. Let's try it again. Go for it
You're
again.
putting a limiter on it. Fuck.
Go ahead.
Let's fucking go!
That's perfect. Let's go again
God
because
damn.
that was perfect.
You want me to do the same thing again?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.